So you've got that big A&E interview coming up, and you know the clinical stations are where you really prove yourself. Well, this is your final prep. We are going to power through some of the most common high-pressure scenarios so you can walk in there feeling confident and ready to absolutely nail it. Think of this as a dry run. We're going to tackle those classic A&E curveballs together. I'll break down the kind of structured, safe answers that are going to seriously impress that interview panel. Let's get you ready to land that job. All right, let's start with a big one, the crashing patient who needs a definitive airway right now. What the interviewer wants to see is that you can bring order to chaos safely and methodically. This is all about rapid sequence intubation, or RSI. Before you even think about drugs or a laryngoscope, this is your absolute safety net. You must verbalize your ABCD assessment. And, just as importantly, you have to say out loud that you're calling for senior help, especially an anesthetist. This one step shows you're a safe team player, not a lone wolf. You are not doing this by yourself. Here's your script for the whole RSI process. You just need to talk them through it. You prepare your gear and your team. You pre-oxygenate to buy yourself precious time. You give the drugs for induction and paralysis. You position the patient correctly. You place the tube. And then you focus on post-intubation management. Just walking them through a structure like this shows you can think clearly when the pressure is on. Now, you should absolutely expect the follow-up question, which paralytic are you going to use? This is the classic choice they'll throw at you. You can think of succinylcholine as the fast option, quick on, quick off. But it has that big risk of hyperkalemia. Rocuronium, on the other hand, is a bit slower, but it's safer for those specific patients with burns, crush injuries, or kidney failure. Knowing which one to pick and why is a huge tick in the box. Okay, on to our next scenario. You see how this builds, right? This is a textbook presentation of anaphylaxis, and it's already causing distributive shock. The name of the game here is speed, and knowing the one single most important thing to do first. So, what's your first move? This is the number you need to know. The immediate life-saving treatment for an adult in anaphylaxis, according to the Resuscitation Council UK, is 500 micrograms of adrenaline, given intramuscularly. That's 0.5 mils of the 1 in 1,000 solution. You need to state that dose clearly and with confidence. It is absolutely non-negotiable. But what if that first shot doesn't work? The interviewer wants to see if you know how to escalate care. This is what we call refractory anaphylaxis. Your next step is getting IV access sorted and starting an adrenaline or epinephrine infusion. Mentioning this shows you can handle the sickest patients, the ones who don't follow the simple algorithm. Of course, shock isn't always about anaphylaxis. What about a major trauma? The key here isn't to recite a textbook. Your first sentence is the most important action. I am activating the major hemorrhage protocol. That single phrase gets a huge hospital-wide response going. It shows you understand systems and how to use them, not just what to do yourself. You know, whether it's septic shock, anaphylactic, or hypovolemic, you need a destination. What are you actually aiming for with all those fluids and vasopressors? It's a map of greater than 65. Mentioning a specific physiological target like this shows you get the why behind resuscitation. It's a little detail that really makes strong candidates stand out. All right, let's switch gears to a classic metabolic emergency. These numbers are practically screaming diabetic ketoacidosis, or DKA. This scenario is a real test of your understanding of physiology and your ability to follow a careful, protocol-driven plan. It's common, it's complex, and it's really high risk if you mess it up. So first things first, you have to confirm the diagnosis. You just state the triad that defines DKA. You've got acidosis, you've got ketones, and you've got high blood sugar. Laying out these criteria right at the start shows the interviewer that you're building your whole management plan on a solid, logical foundation. Okay, what's the next step? You need to classify the severity. And you might be thinking, why does that matter? Well, it's because it directly guides your fluid resuscitation strategy. A pH of 7.05, like in our case, puts this patient squarely in this severe DKA category. And that is a critical piece of info for what you're going to do next. Now, this right here is a really critical nuance. Before you even calculate fluids, you have to ask one simple question. Is my patient in shock? Because the answer completely changes your initial moves. Getting this distinction right is a sophisticated point that shows you have real clinical insight. When you're explaining your plan, just break it down into 3 simple pillars: fluids, insulin, and potassium.
You rehydrate them carefully. You start a fixed-rate insulin infusion. And it's so important to say you would never give a bolus to turn off that ketone production. And you start replacing potassium right away, knowing that insulin is going to drive it into the cells. This framework is clear, safe, and super easy to remember under pressure.
And now for the ultimate A&E test, leading a cardiac arrest. The defibrillator's on, your team is looking right at you. This question isn't really about obscure facts. It's about your ability to lead, to follow an algorithm, and to think clearly under the most extreme pressure imaginable. Your very first words have to answer this question. Everything else you do depends on this one decision. You look at that monitor and you state clearly, this is a shockable rhythm, like VF or pulseless VT, or this is a non-shockable rhythm, like asystole or PEA. That one statement determines which side of the algorithm you and your whole team are about to go down. And here are those two pathways. The ALS algorithm is your roadmap in the chaos. The shockable path on the left is all about defibrillation. The non-shockable path on the right is about high-quality CPR and adrenaline. As the team leader, your job is simply to keep everyone on the right path, guiding them through each 2-minute cycle with absolute clarity. While your team is busy running those cycles, your mind has to be running on a parallel track. You have to be thinking, what caused this arrest? The 4 H's and 4 T's aren't just for exams, they are your real-time troubleshooting checklist. Finding and fixing one of these is often the only way you're going to get ROSC. Verbalizing this thought process shows you're a clinical leader, not just an algorithm follower. So there you have it. We've gone through the crashing airway, shock, DKA, and running a cardiac arrest. All the algorithms, the drug doses, the guidelines, that's your essential foundation. That's the bedrock of your competence, and you have to know it cold. But here's the final and maybe most crucial point. That interview isn't just a test of what you know. It's a test of how you behave when things get tough. Every answer you give is a chance to show that you are a calm leader and a clear communicator. Remember, they're not just hiring a walking textbook. They're hiring a colleague. So the real question is, how are you going to prove that you're the right one for their team?